Hi guys, this is Tracy with Pop-Up Paint Studio, and I'm here today doing another art paint kit tutorial. This one we call Sailboat Silhouette, and this is kid-friendly as well as adult-friendly. So we just hope who has ever ordered this kit is going to enjoy this one as well as I do. So if you have this kit, you're going to get a 12 by 12 stretched canvas with your design already imprinted on it. You're going to receive 5 brushes that come in each kit. You may or may not use all the brushes, but at least you'll have them maybe for the next time you paint. Each kit comes with a sponge. You get your paints, of course, and a paper plate. I like for you to open up your paints and put the lids next to them so that you'll know the names of the colors, and I'll let you know the names as we go through the painting process. You get a design printed out, so you'll have that. This is a painted canvas that I have, but you definitely get a printed design to reference. You get detailed instructions. And the one thing that does not come included is your jar of water or your cup of water, and that's simply all you need is just a cup of water that you don't mind getting dirty. So there you go, and then we'll be ready to start painting. So the first brush that we're going to use, and let me go ahead and tell you what I'm going to call them. This is going to be your large flat brush. This is going to be your large rounded brush. This is your small flat brush, your small rounded brush, and then your detail brush, which is your smallest brush. And we're going to begin with the largest brush, and we're going to start with this beautiful sky. Now with this design, there's a lot of blending, so that's a new technique that we haven't really had to use so far in my paint tutorials because they're very kid-friendly, but this one I think is something that everyone can do. So the first color that you're going to be using is the cobalt blue. You have 2 blues. You have a phthalo blue and a cobalt blue. So this is your cobalt blue, and what I want you to do is just simply paint the top portion of your canvas, and I want you to do it like this, by flowing that brush across the whole top of the canvas. And don't stop, just flow it all the way across. Mine keeps moving a little bit. Let's see. All right, and maybe a little bit more. I'll say maybe an inch down, not too much more than an inch, and it doesn't have to be any kind of a solid line. And get all that paint out of the brush back and forth, nice and blended. Then you're going to put down that cobalt blue, and you're going to grab your white, and you're going to dip your dirty brush in your white. That's okay. A lot of paint on your brush, and you're going to come up underneath where you painted, and you're going to move slowly upwards, and you're going to blend those colors together, the white with the blue. And you have to move kind of quickly because you're moving up with this lot of white paint, but you're going to blend those colors. And when you get up there to blend, kind of push that brush down. I'm going to hold my canvas so I can really push that brush down and get all that paint in and blend those colors really good. It'll always stay a little bit darker at the top, which is what we want. But we do want it to be a light sky, because as we move down towards the sailboat, we want it to be almost white. So we're getting more paint, white paint on our brush, and we're going down further. And the more white you get on the brush, the lighter the color gets, which is exactly what we're looking for. So I didn't have enough white to get quite all the way to blend these 2 colors, so I'm getting some more, and then I'm going to go up here to blend these colors together, which simply means pressing down hard with your brush, moving quickly over the top of the colors that you want to blend. Now once the paint starts drying, you can't blend it anymore. So once you have something that looks really cute up here, which I love the way it looks up here, I'm not going to go back up there and add any more paint. Now I'm adding more white paint, and I'm going all the way down to what's called the horizon line, where the water meets the sky. And we're just going to go down to that line, and we can go right over our sailboat because it's such a light color. You'll be able to see through it when it dries. And you can go over that black line a little bit if you want to. Because we can still see the horizon line when we go to paint the water. All right, looks great. And it never looks the same. However many times I do a sky, it never looks the same. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to rinse this brush in the water. And your kit also comes with a paper towel. Of course, I always forget to mention something. That's what I mentioned. It does come with one paper towel. You're probably going to need more than one paper towel. It just depends on how messy you are. The kit also does come with an apron, so I hope you're wearing your apron. The paint does stain, so we don't want it to stain your clothes. And it's a disposable apron, so no worries. Okay, so now the next color that we're going to be doing is going to be the sand color. Okay, so I've got my brush rinsed and wiped off, and it's going to be the light of the sienna. So you've got a light raw sienna, and then you've got just a regular raw sienna. So we're going to be using the light raw sienna. So it's the lighter of the two beiges. And we're just going to throw that brush right in there. And we're going to paint the sand all the way up to the sand line and over the top of the sand line. And every time I mix raw sienna with something to make a lighter sand color, it always comes out a different shade, so no worries about that. It's a little bit of a different shade. Once we're gonna shade it with the darker raw sienna, so it'll get all that pretty color in there. And we're going over the line. That is our sand line. But we want to go over the line because we're going to have that water painted over the top of the sand, and you're going to be able to see the sand through the water. I hope you can see how you can see the sand through the water there. It's pretty cool. All right. And if you want to, I always suggest that you paint on the edges of your canvas. If you paint the edges of your canvas, now I'm using a flat canvas today, but you have what's called a stretched canvas. And a stretched canvas has edges and sides to it. So if you have sides to yours, which I know you do, you go over the side and paint those side edges. Just paint the sand part, and you would paint the water part, all this blue, this maybe the lighter color, or as you're painting it, paint the side. But it makes it a more finished kind of a look. So you can do that after you're finished painting the whole thing or as you go. Perfect. Okay, so I've got my sand painted in, and I'm going to take my darker raw sienna, and I am just going to put a few what we call shadows in here. A few little shadow colors. There we go. The sand doesn't look perfectly flat. It has kind of different colors to it. And this really is a different shade, but I'm kind of loving it. Very cool. And if you don't like the colors, you can always add different colors to them to make them darker or lighter. You could add some of this darker raw sienna to the lighter if you wanted to make it lighter, because I kind of like it this darker color with the lighter being more of a highlight. So that's what I think I'm doing here. And you do whatever you like, but use both these colors to paint in your sand however you like. That's what's great about painting, is you decide what you're going to put in your painting. You know, if you'd like something a different way, please do that. If you want to add something, this is a perfect painting to add things to. You know, birds in the sky, a shark out here in the water, maybe a starfish on the sand here. You can do that. Okay, so I'm finished with my sand, and now I'm going to rinse this brush again. Rinse, rinse, rinse. I'm going to take my paper towel, wipe it off. And also, if you do have not purchased a paint kit from Popup Paint Studio, you don't have to. If you're just watching this and you want to join in, please do. I mean, all we have is kind of a beigey sand color, some blues, a white. I'm going to have a black for the silhouette, but you could use a magic marker. You could use your markers to paint the whole thing. You can use color crayons. You can use paper for your background. So, yeah, definitely just get what you've got and join in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do with our rinsed off and dried off brush is we're going to take our phthalo blue. And the phthalo blue is the dark, dark, dark blue. And we're going to put a little bit, and don't like stick your whole brush in there. Just get a little bit like this. And the background of your water, right here where the boat's sitting in, where your black line is, I want you to make a nice straight line. Doesn't have to be perfect. If it gets a little bit wavy out there, that's okay. But I usually hold my brush this way to do this straight line because it makes it a little bit easier than like trying to brush it like this and make a straight line. Because it really doesn't matter what it looks like underneath this straight line right now, because we're going to blend all that in, just like we did the sky. We're going to blend these colors together. This is definitely the design to learn how to blend colors. Now I'm going to go right over the bottom of that boat, and I'll just paint him in later. I can see where, even if that dark blue covers it up, I can see where that little bottom of that boat was. All right, so I'm still just trying to get this dark back line, and then we can start blending those colors and making the ocean. All right, so we've got the back done, and I would say the same like the sky. I want you to go down about 1/2 inch or so. That might be a little bit more, but it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. Go around the edges if you want to. And now, with that dirty brush, take your white, lots of white, and we're going to go underneath, and we're going to go back and forth and go up and meet that water. And when we meet that water, while it's still wet, we're going to blend it together. You see how that's blending? So it's not a hard line, but a nice smooth looking, kind of watery looking thing there. That is what painting is about. Beautiful. And sometimes you'll get one of those happy accidents that Bob Ross talks about, and you'll just make the prettiest little wave you ever seen and didn't even try to do it. And what you got to do is learn to recognize that when you see that and stop painting. Because you can have something really cool going when you're blending things, and then you'll go over the top of it again and it'll be gone. So anytime you're blending something to get a certain look or effect, watch what it's looking like behind that brush. And if you like it, don't paint over the top of it because it'll disappear. All right, so we're still doing white. That's the only blue you do. You don't ever grab any more blue because there's so much blue in your brush. You don't even know how much blue is in your brush. All right, so we're already down here to the sand. Now, once you get to the sand, what I want you to do is actually Don't have too much paint in your brush because you kind of want it to be a dry brush, but we're going to go over the top of that sand with just the dregs of what's left in our brush. Go over the top of the sand and just blend it in like that. Now when that dries, you're going to be able to see that sand through those colors because they're so thin right there. All right, perfect. Okay, so now we are going to, I think what we're going to do is go ahead and rinse that brush. In fact, just throw that brush in there. Just leave that brush in there. I was going to use it, and I think on the directions I used this for the next step, but instead I have changed my mind. I'm going to use the rounded, large rounded brush to do this step. And all I'm going to do is just add some little frothy waves here at the edge of the beach water coming in. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put some white on the end of my brush. And it's okay if there's some blue in there because there's blue in the water. And all I'm going to do is start stippling, which means little dots, dot, 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 along the edge, just up and down like this. Up and down, just like this, little dots. And look and see what you're doing. You can kind of have some coming in a little bit. Move your brush in such a way where it's making a mark you kind of like. So if it's not making a mark you like, kind of move it around. And this is one of those instances when there's more paint in that brush than what you think. I only went once into my brush. You don't want to get too much on this first pass. Now you can add all the froth and stuff that you want, but build up on it just a little bit at a time. So I'm just kind of having splashes here almost. And look, I only went in my paint one time. I'm still getting paint. Woo! Okay, that's about as much as I can get on that. I'm going to get a little bit more, and I'm actually going to blot a little bit off. So let me get my paper down, because I don't want too much on there. All right. Just pop, 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 pop. And you can bring it up as far as you want. You can have some of it coming way up here. You don't want it to be just a straight line across. And you can also, give yourself a little bit of streaks in the water if you want. I wouldn't get too crazy, but you definitely can give yourself some little white streaks if you want right here. This is not in the design right here because I just had so many streaks just automatically when I blended my colors, so I didn't feel like it needed anything else. But if you feel like you need a few little, little waves out here, don't make big humps. Just go kind of straight across. You don't want to make it look like a wave. You go straight across and it'll look like a wave. All right? All right, so now, if I can stop doing this, hold on. I got to do this a little bit more. And you know what? I'm going to mess this up. I kind of like the way this is really, really messy. So that's the fun thing about painting nature is, it never looks any certain way. Nature is so fun to paint because, it's very organic. So it can look any way, and it's right. Except I think I'm doing too much. Okay, I'm going to stop. Okay, so throw that brush in the water, and let me put all my paints over here. It's supposed to stay over here so it'll be neat, and here I've got them everywhere. Okay, so now we're going to be using the detail brush, and that's the smallest brush, and we are going to paint the sailboat. Now hopefully you can still see the sailboat. Mine, I can see it perfectly. If it's really dim and you're not being able to see it as well as you'd like, you can just take a pencil. I don't have one here. Let me see. No, I don't. I thought I had a pencil right here. Everything else. And you can just draw it over again because we're going to paint it black. So any pencil or any black marks are all going to disappear with the paint even being painted over it. All right, so here we go. A little bit of black. And hopefully your water is dry enough to be able to balance your arm on your canvas, because you don't want to just be up here painting, you know, without balancing your arm, because it's hard to do. It's hard to make a straight line. And if your boat gets a little bit bigger than it is in the picture, that's okay. It's your boat. It can be as big as you want it to be. Maybe you can have 2 or 3 boats out here. But this is a good basic design to be able to paint, because you can do so many different things. I mean, you know, you could paint an umbrella here on the beach and have some, you know, a towel or any kind of a, you know, beach scenario. Yeah, anything. You can make a ball in a bucket with a shovel in the sand. That'd be cute. Uh-oh. I got a little bit out of the lines, but that's all right. I'm just going to make this a little bit narrower. And usually before this much time has passed, I let you know what that sponge is for. If you make a boo-boo, say I accidentally got black in my sky, which I don't want to do that, but if I did, what I would do is just set down my brush and I would wet my sponge with, see, I've used it before. I would wet my sponge with some clean water, squeeze it out, and you can just wipe it off. You can just wipe it off if you have just done it. If it's still wet, this paint can just be wiped off. Now, if it's dry, I cannot take a wet sponge and just wipe these dry areas off, okay? So as soon as you feel like you've made a mark that you don't like, or that it was out of the lines or whatever, wet that. In fact, go ahead and wet that sponge when you start, and then you can squeeze it out and wipe off your boo-boo. I probably should have told you that a long time ago. It is in the directions and also the tips and suggestions sheet that you've got. We do tell you about that sponge. So yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes when I'm doing these videos, I leave things out. And I apologize for that. Yeah, you could have a shark chasing this boat. That'd be funny. All right. Almost there. Uh-oh, I think Paulie's coming in. But he likes to join me sometimes, and he's shaking my table. Are you going to lay down right there? Now be still. Be still. He has been known to ruin a painting session or two. But we love you. We love you. I hope that paint's dry, Polly. Polly is a boy with a girl's name. And I'm sure most of you can understand how that happened. Because we thought he was a girl. He was so tiny when we got him. And the little girl that had found him had named him Polly Pocket. So when we adopted him, we just loved that name. We put it on his little house, and then we found out he was a boy, and it was too late to change his name. He was Polly Pocket. It didn't matter if he was a boy, so he doesn't mind at all. All right, so I remember this. I hope you can still see. I hope Polly hasn't blocked your view here. Okay. So this sailboat had kind of dipped down in here, but that dark blue kind of hid it. So make sure that you get under here. If you can't see it, just dip a little tiny bit below the water and then come up. And there we go. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, guys. So thank you once again for painting with me. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.